The concept of split souls is often a theme found in various mythologies. It is about the spiritual or immaterial essence of being and can be divided or fragmented in some way. Some belief systems suggest that the souls can be split into two parts and incarnate into different bodies. As we call them, twin or twin flames, are said to share profound connection and often seek each other out across different lifetimes. In certain beliefs related to reincarnation, the soul must undergo experiences or trauma that cause it to fragment or split. These fragments can then reincarnate into different individuals, each carrying a part of the original soul's essence. These souls often explore the journey of reuniting or reconciling the split parts. It often serves as a symbol for the search for completeness. In various narratives, the central theme might revolve around the journey towards reintegration, finding wholeness, or reconnecting with one's true self or counterpart. Hi, it's Brigid here, author of Transform Your Psyche, your journal to self-discovery. I'm going to read you one of the chapters in the book, and it's about split souls. I read that a friend of mine named Pete had died suddenly at the age of 51. I had not seen Pete since I was in my 20s, and I did wonder what had happened to him. After reading the death notice, something told me that he had actually taken his life. I soon dismissed this incident and did not give it any thought until months later when I had a dream. I found myself walking up a hill behind a man in red shorts. I looked up and saw my friend Pete. The way he looked in his 20s, the way he looked when I knew him. Curly hair, moustache, cute smile. That smile that attracted me to him back in those days. We walked together into what can only be described as a hobbit-like cave with old hospital beds. I looked around and I noticed crutches and hospital equipment by the bed. We sat on the bed and we talked. And not knowing how Pete had died, I asked him what had happened. He said, I found life just too difficult. And as a result of what I did, I have to come back. Please do not be sad, as I will see you again. Months went by and I forgot about this dream. One day I was having a conversation with a man. His name was Paul. He was very familiar to me, his build, mannerism, smile, but he had only just met me. As we were talking, he said something to me that jolted my memory back to Pete. I asked where he was from and when his birthday was. They were the same as Pete. Coincidence, maybe? I asked if he had connections to the area that Pete lived in, and he said he did. Although he did not know Pete, he knew the name. This chance meeting turned out to be a whirlwind of events for me. I had a friendship with this person. It appeared to me that he had a split personality. 1 minute loving and caring, the next moody, angry and depressed. I did not need this in my life, so I endeavoured to end the friendship. Every time I would ignore him, I would get pulled back again to reconnect. After a very erratic year with him, I decided I would just ignore my intuition and him, as he was driving me mad. Simple, right? Wrong. One evening, my guides asked me if I would go and see Paul. As a spiritual person, it's very difficult to ignore these requests. I had not seen him for a while, so I ignored the first feeling, and then the feeling to connect became very strong and intensified. I felt I was being carried to his house. Like a madwoman, I found myself knocking on his door. The front door, back door, window, I started to fear the worst. He finally answered. He came to the door and asked me in. He seemed smaller, almost childlike. He looked soul-destroyed. We sat and talked, and he explained how he was in his car and felt like driving into a wall and ending his life. He went on to say that life had become too difficult and he had thought about suicide a few times. But instead, he had the strength to seek out the help of a counsellor. At this point, I knew I was talking to Pete. Had Pete come back to work through his suicide? As he did say he would have to come back. And did he use Paul to connect with me? Later that night, I meditated on this situation, and my guides explained that when someone takes their life, they have to live that life again, to learn the lessons and to move through. Because I had a connection with this person, I was on the learning journey. My guides thought it would be wonderful for Pete to relive his journey with me. Thanks for that. After that meeting with Paul, I never saw him again. I felt the story was unfinished. So I invited Paul for a coffee to see what changes had occurred in his life. When he arrived, he was not the person I knew. There was no resemblance in his appearance to Pete. In fact, he was a complete stranger to me. That part of the lesson had been learned, and not only had Pete healed, this person had healed too. Whilst writing about this, I asked my guides if I would ever get concrete proof that Pete did actually commit suicide. I received notification from Pete's brother. Ian responds to me with, "Mother told me Peter had taken sleeping pills after drinking too much and unfortunately passed away during the night. The official verdict was suicide." She confirmed that Peter had a deep depression for several years prior to the event and was on some very strong antidepressants. This story is an example of a thread being carried throughout life and into the afterlife, where a soul had to reconnect with someone to heal so that Pete could rest in peace and Paul could live a more contented life. I was honoured to be part of this journey. However, had you asked me at the time, I would have said otherwise. They both came from mothers who had remarried. They were both controlling women, and they both treated their sons in such a way that both Peter and Paul spent most of their lives trying to gain approval. Both men had a special relationship with their fathers, both lost their fathers at a young age, and both mothers remarried men who were subservient. Paul's mother eventually passed, giving Paul permission to move on into a freer life without control or restrictions. He does not feel he needs to prove anything or seek approval anymore. Peter did not have that luxury as his mother outlived him, still denying the fact that his son took his life.